The bot is stupid and can't actually tell when the stream started. Hello. I was planning to respond to some curi comments. There's also this discussion going on. And I have like a page left in the SENS paper. This topic is one that I recommend people discuss. So here's the link. So for example, 2 days ago, I wrote about the goal of life and I suggested people discuss it. And Nick Luck ignored me and then got into a debate about pay-per-view money stuff with people who don't actually care about thinking or ideas or truth-seeking very much for some reason. And I don't know why people just ignore philosophy and do that kind of thing, but I mean, I know some reasons, but I've written about them. And I don't know the specific reason in this case. It's very common though. People just aren't actually interested in thinking. Something like that. Or they're blocked from it and they don't want to face what's blocking them and deal with it. I was thinking the other day that people need to find ways to look at their life and their learning and realize and see for themselves that they're blocked, that they have things like systematic biases, static memes, irrationality, dishonesty, evasion, etc. They need to recognize that's their problem situation, that they have these massive things ruining their life and preventing them from being decent at thinking or learning much. They have to convince themselves of that instead of just hear it in the abstract. Like find actual examples in their life where they can see themselves behaving badly and see they have a real problem. And then maybe that would motivate and inspire them to actually try to do something about it. But that's just the kind of advice that I give people, and then they don't do anything. So I don't know. One of the things you can do if you realize something's wrong is you can look at, okay, what are common things that are wrong with other people? And then you can get good at understanding and recognizing those, and then you can take that knowledge and apply it to yourself. But I think zero people have taken interest in that. I've suggested that before. I don't know what this sentence is supposed to mean. Like, first of all, it's talking about a singular life, but then it has plural people. I don't know what the point of saying, like, does it mean you should experience your life? Like, you can't help but experience your life. So, I don't get it. Hello. So this is not what it says. It says that you should live a life guided by good ideas. This says they can guide your life. Not that you should do it. Like, it doesn't make it the goal. It just says it's a thing that can happen. It's a possibility rather than a goal. It also changes good to good or useful. I don't know why. Like, supposedly it's trying to say what I said. Like, it's repeating what I said in their own words. Like, summarizing or paraphrasing or kind of in that ballpark. But then it's just changing something. Like, I say good, it changes it to good or useful. I don't know why that change is being made. There's no explanation of the reasoning for changing that. This reads to me like someone who doesn't have good enough um, English fluency, maybe. I think that might be part of the problem. So it's just like causing sort of random word changes throughout. So it's not very precise. Oh, I think it's trying to say there's a type of life where it's guided by good ideas, and then that is the life that should be experienced and should be the goal. It's But like none of all this did was say it's trying to say the same thing, but it made it way more complicated and way more confusing. I don't see the value add in any of this. I think it's just worse than the original text in like pretty much every way. And it's hard to tell from this whether the person understands the text or not. Like, it doesn't serve the purpose of elaborating or clarifying anything as far as I can tell. I think it's just trying to use synonyms. Like, it switches come from to originate. So it's like they used a thesaurus, maybe, to find different words. This is the kind of thing people do in school, but it's not productive in general. I agree, but classic. People pretend to agree so much more than they do for social reasons. This guy is not respecting what the channel's for. This is not like something he could reasonably expect as error free. But I don't want to talk to him. He ignores me. He doesn't listen. Not productive. He's not interested in FI stuff in a serious way. I already tried to talk to him several times. And he said he agreed with me and then did nothing of what he said he agreed with. He dislikes reading things. Why does he think he did? Well, what does he know about being honest? Has he written anything about it? Has he discussed how to be honest? Like, what has he done to learn this? I give a lot of advice about how silence is ambiguous and like you can't really make progress when people are silent, and then he's mostly silent, but he says he's following my advice as he understands it. It doesn't seem reasonable. Well, ask questions, try to find something you don't understand and talk about it and analyze it. Like break it down into smaller pieces and try to figure out and try to think about it and think it through and stuff. Like you just don't spend time on it in a visible way. Like I give advice like make lists of things you actually do. Make lists of some of your goals and make lists of what you do and then compare if you think you're working on your goals. And try to figure out if you're making progress. Find something where you can try to make progress and you can measure whether you're making progress. And I don't think he's been doing that. So he thinks he gets better, but he's not. I've pointed like it's easy to fool yourself about whether you're getting better. So you need to have things where you can test whether you're actually getting better, something you can measure, something objective. And he just doesn't seem to do that as far as I know. Which is very, very typical. Like I could say the same thing about most people. It's an ongoing problem. And then people just don't seem very like self-aware or realistic about what they do. I've been using a variety of non-Google search engines. I think I have Yahoo on this computer right now. And like, it's either Bing or DuckDuckGo on my laptop. Google is really bad on a variety of things. They're worse than all the other ones. I would advise people to switch their default away from Google. And then if you have trouble finding something, you can try Google. Because Google is better on some searches, but it's so biased on a lot of things. I think it's bad to have Google as a default. All the time, at least. I don't think I bothered changing it on my phone. But like, at least if you change it on some stuff, then sometimes you'll get like other things that don't show up on Google, like you have more of a chance. There's definitely convenience issues, but yeah, I would not go all in on Google. Okay, so DDG had anti-trans results and Google didn't. DDG has immigration nationalism results, and Google does not have any. That's like, that's really fucking biased and nasty. This should be in deplatforming instead of in general. A minor thing, but like, this Google is essentially deplatforming people by biasing their web search, and they're doing a lot of it. If he actually understood FOR and BOI, he'd do things like problem solving and critical discussion. But if someone doesn't like critical commentary on their stuff and never wants to discuss anything, it shows their total lack of engagement with DD worldview type ideas. Wait, oh, he knows there's something wrong with that guy? Anyway, I already linked Doubting Thomas to criticism of the fun criterion. He has yet to respond. I don't know why he's still talking about it. This guy has no idea what some of the dangers of fun criterion are. It's not that it, of course, it doesn't ignore inexplicit ideas. Like fun is often inexplicit, but people often think partying is fun, so it could People can take it as, ooh, I should party more and drink more beer. More rock and roll and sex. So that's a danger. Like, most of what people consider fun is problematic. It's not epistemologically the correct path to take more cocaine at parties. Right, but I'm not interested in reading a bad article by a person who does not care about criticism. There's no purpose in reading a bunch of mistakes that aren't going to be corrected. I don't know if that guy's watching the stream or not. Okay, but I've said repeatedly that that's inadequate to avoid fooling yourself. Like, that method does not work. I've written about why it doesn't work. Okay, so if you find something hard, I've written about what to do. Now you have a problem, you should do something about the problem. Talk about it, consider it, try to figure out what's hard about it. Like, you could do problem solving. I've written a lot about problem solving methods. If you simply find it hard and silently give up, you're not doing any of the sorts of things I write about. Wait, you're worried that you'll miss out on subjects? So you do 0 subjects instead of 1? Like, it'd be better if you pick one that's not perfect than if you never get anywhere with any subject. Oh, he says that in that. He knows that. Okay, so yeah, it's just rationalizing. People would be easier to talk with if they would lead with, like, I'm rationalizing a lot. Instead of, like, you have to argue with them a bit and then they say it. Like, if they're just open with, I'm rationalizing a lot, I don't know how to deal with it, then I could give them advice about that. But it's like, first I have to, like, criticize them, and then maybe they get defensive, and then maybe they admit to something, and it's, like, a lot harder to talk to people when this kind of thing is not up front. Like, this is a relevant thing. If he already knew this and thought this, he could share it earlier as a... Because at first he's like, oh, can't I just learn using this debate thing? Not, I think I'm rationalizing and avoiding learning. Like, it's a completely different type of response to deal with. Well, what about the FI learning plan? Like, you can... you could do the things in the suggested FI learning plan. That is a way to deal with rationalization because it gives objective, measurable standards. When you keep your distance a lot, there's like almost nothing I can do. Sounds like the sparks joy criterion. This is quite an abrupt transition. Like, first it's vague self-help. Like, very conventional, not philosophy. And it's like, it's very vague about how he started saying no. It's just like he's telling his story with no reasons that would happen to anyone else ever. And it doesn't actually make sense as a thing to happen. Like, he raised his standards, now he does nothing. There's something screwy going on there. That's not just a natural consequence of raising your standard. Anyway, so he presents it like a personal story, though. So, like, as an anecdote, it's okay. Like, that could be his anecdote. He tried to do this advice, and then this thing happened to him. That's like, there's a million other factors involved, but then it's like a real thing that happened. He ended up, like, lying in bed a lot. That's realistic. Like, I don't philosophically associate, like, the thing he did must have caused that, but, the thing he did plus 20 other things could easily lead to that result. Like, he did some normal things and he got a result that plenty of people have in their life. So it's like an anecdote, it's self-help, it's not intellectual. And then we got here, and he's like jumping into Popperian epistemology out of context very abruptly. It's this huge change from the first paragraph. It makes like no sense. It just everyone's lost now. Readers have no idea what they're reading or why. And this is a very technical point that is misleading without proper context. Like, because you can speak in a way where you're mostly not misunderstood. Like, you can do a lot about being misunderstood. It's not like we just have to give up. It's just technically like we can't be perfect. Like, if he means it in a way other than we can never be perfect, you have to like explain that and clarify what you're talking about. This is a comma splice. Oh wait, there's a just at. Let's see. Yeah, okay, never mind. So he's taking like a, X is possible. We can't 100% rule it out. And then he seems to be jumping from there to like actual life advice for some reason with no substantive analysis. We don't have guarantees. This has nothing to do with the first paragraph. This is basically anti-fun criterion, though. Like, saying that it's okay to get involved with something that doesn't immediately grab your interest. This is not a recipe for lying in bed, though, because there's plenty of things that sound valuable immediately or fun immediately or whatever to people. Like, you would have to combine this with something else, like thinking a bunch of things are shallow and like avoiding them on purpose. Like either resisting temptation, like liking them but not doing it, or you could actually change so you dislike them. Like it could be more of a thorough, large change. But either way, like it takes some sort of work to live in our culture and then reject a bunch of types of fun, like TV. You can create new options in life. Yeah, I don't see how this article would like ever help anyone, basically. It's really confusing and confused. Maybe it would help someone if they just took this paragraph right here and they ignored everything else in the article. Um well actually this paragraph doesn't stand on its own, which is poor writing. Like he could have written this so he'd have sort of a conclusion or summary statement that you could read on its own and it would make sense. It would be like shareable, like you could tweet it or something. But this doesn't work out of context. But if you get the context from the article but then ignore everything it says, and then you take this like in context, it's a well-known, extremely widely talked about point, but it is pretty good. He's dressing it up like he's saying something original. Like that's one of the things I don't like about these posts is they're very vague about what's original or why they're writing the post. Like, because he doesn't actually have something new to say, but he presents it sort of like he's saying something new, but sort of like he's just talking about his own experience. And then he throws in the philosophy to make it sound like he's like actually using philosophy, like this stuff, which he's not really. Yeah, what is the purpose of this post? Why did he make it? What's he trying to do? Like, I think that he has a certain social circle. Like, I don't think he has an audience, like in general with the public. I think this is a way of interacting with a small friend group and like pretending to be a content creator. It's sort of content, but like it's more than some people do. But he doesn't really know what he's talking about. He's very vague about the anecdote. It's like it's hard to get value because the anecdote part is so vague, but the philosophy is so vague. He's throwing like tiny bits of things together and then jumping to a conclusion. So you can't really understand what he thinks. Like it's very hard to get inside his head and actually understand his thought process. Like you can't actually tell if he did something right or he learned something or not. Like Is he applying this to his own life in a reasonable, useful way? Can't tell. I have no idea why he thinks he should concede the debate. Like, the other people don't know how to have a debate. Like, you could leave the debate without conceding, like, I'm done talking about this later, guys. You don't have to say I was wrong in order to stop. I mean, and it depends why he's doing it. Like, I don't know what his motivations in psychology are. Apparently he wanted to have this debate. Yeah. I mean, his life is full of things that are irrational, I guess. There's no, like, special reason to get rid of this one. It's just a thing that happened to come up. That was like a jumping off point to discuss something else. Like, the actual problem is that this debate and many other things are in place of reason and truth seeking. I thought that it was a bad answer even if I hadn't written the word partially. But maybe we can drop that. These are all very specific about like mechanics of reading and memory. I don't think they're very productive, but they're like trying. It's something he can try. I think he doesn't know how to do something more productive about this. Like, it's okay. This I think is a better point. Well, one of the things you could do at this point is try to figure out something to do about it that you do want to do. Like, investigate things that can be done about errors. Oh, that's that thread. This one first. I skimmed this before. So I asked about the article because it has some apparent or potential ways that it contradicts FI ideas I've talked a lot about. And it looked like this commenter did not notice and was just like, the article's good, FI is good, didn't see any sort of conflict. I'm not saying the conflict's like necessarily real, but it at least takes some analysis to decide like what actual conflicts there are or aren't. Like one ought to be able to notice a potential problem. Because it says focus on big wins instead of minutia. So you could read that as contradicting building things up from basics with a low error rate. It could be read as just skip to the complicated, fancy, high-level stuff and start there and get some big wins from it and ignore all the basics and prerequisites. People are very irrational about money. Like they'll spend hundreds of hours working on FI and spend like $0 on it. That kind of thing's pretty common. This is hard to reply to because I don't want to give a bunch of like answers to other people. I'd like other people to think about it and notice things for themselves. Like I'd be happy to give hints to this person, but I don't want to give hints to other people who ought to see what they can come up with on their own. I mean, I already gave some hints verbally. Even that might have been a little much. This person actually wrote a bunch of stuff though. The other people, for whatever reason, have not. So I think I'll say something. I don't agree with this. I think like negatives matter, positives matter, they both matter. We shouldn't like motivation can involve both of them. Like imagine someone said that you drive a car in a safe manner because you want to arrive at your destination, the positive goal, rather than because you want to avoid like crashing and dying, the negative. Like I think saying that you have to focus on the positive would be silly. Like the crashing and the danger are like relevant concerns to take into account. Similarly, like running out of money is a real problem that can be thought about usefully. You don't have to like pick one or the other and like be a negative, fearful person versus a positive, inspired person. I don't like that dichotomy. Yeah, you should definitely feel free to write like 2 sentence comments. They do not have to be long. Like, you shouldn't set long as your standard. Yeah, I think this is a good point that like lowering your budget is pretty capped on how much value you can get out of it. Like maybe you could lower your budget $1,000 a month. But the amount you can like increase salary is a lot more than that. Although it depends somewhat, like what kind of profession you're in and what the options are and whether you're willing to put the work into switching to be a supervisor or some other thing. Like some jobs have limited upward mobility. You have to like make some sort of significant change to get a lot of additional income. Whereas other jobs, it's like you don't have to change as much. It's more accessible. All right, SENS paper. I want to get this finished. Okay. Progress has been made towards making cells which are they cause an autoimmune reaction less, meaning they trigger your immune system to kill them less. A particular thing was engineered, and it was not killed in a particular way and resisted a different one, both in vitro and in mice. In vitro means in test tube? Question mark. No, I'm gonna check. Yep, test tube. Not in a living organism. Vivo means living organism, yes. Oh, so it's only gonna like work 50% in humans. The fuck are cardiomyocytes? No, entries. Cardiac muscle cells. "20% failed without explanations." So yeah, this is exactly what I said in my last video. So they don't really understand what they're doing, and they might be able to get it to mostly work, but it's not going to be like all that reliable because they're skipping so many steps of having control over what they're doing. It's a lot like if you fly to Mars and you find a bunch of alien technology and you have no idea how any of it works. You start pressing the buttons and you're like, well, this seems to do this, and then you start using it, and you may get some value out of that. But since you don't know how anything works, you're just limited to the things you found on Mars. Like you can't make more of them, and you have a very hard time repairing them or changing them. So there's like a lot of limitations there. Limitations are a big deal when people are hoping to live forever. But it's like, if it has a decent chance to extend your life a decent amount, that's good, but it's like very different than you can now be confident you'll live forever unless you get hit by a car or like murdered or something. Blunted, not abolished. So that means it's working somewhat, not perfectly. Minimal, that means somewhat working, not perfectly. Like mostly working, but not perfect at all. And that's in mice or in vitro. And there's reasons to think it could be a lot worse in humans and a lot harder. So there's something a little bit promising or positive looking there. Oncogenic. Oh, cancer? I don't know why it does that. Like, it seems perfectly plausible, I just don't know the specific reasoning. Um, yeah, I asked them for identity verification, and they ignored me, so I think I'm gonna delete this. Or I could just ignore it, I don't know. This is a possible Andy. You could just say you don't think it's very good, but here's what you wrote. If you label stuff so people know what it is, it's they can understand what's going on a lot more. It works better. Because then they can know like what might be helpful to you. If you just write something normally, people's default assumption is you think that what you said is good, and then they'll like debate that with you, or like point out why it's not good. But if you say you already don't think it's very good, then they might think about like what would help you and look at it differently. I don't see much downside to posting if you already wrote it. Okay, so it's like a cheerleading article with very little content. I don't see what purpose it has. It doesn't have much in the way of technical details. It's just sort of general summary stuff, but it's not written for a layman. But it's sort of like it assumes that you already know all of this stuff, um, as like you're already an expert. But then I don't see what it would be telling an expert that they don't already know. Like, is the point just like if they're not familiar with some of these papers, they can like look at the references and like read some of the other papers? Anyway, so I think the article is pretty trash. Yeah, I think that's a good idea if that's your opinion. I think it's relevant information for people to have. I don't understand what's wrong with this guy. I was asking how to get a random sample like 5 times in a row and he just doesn't answer. And he doesn't keep track of what he said or like follow the line of conversation. He doesn't seem to remember what he actually said or like what my questions have to do with it. And he keeps saying things that like just ignore what I said. You can't have an approximately random sample without addressing the problem of how to get a sample that's random at all. Like, non-random samples are not approximately random. You can't solve the problem of my sample is non-random by saying even approximately random samples are useful. Making your sample size bigger does not automatically make it more random. If you have a non-random sample and you start identifying biases and you find like here are 20 biases and then you account for them and fix them, you still don't have anything that's an approximately random sample. It's a non-random sample with 20 flaws fixed. But it's not a random sample. It's a completely different thing. Like it's he's making a category error. So I asked for a specific example, and then he gave any theory that explains some past phenomenon. Okay, well, this particular example is covered in the book, so why is he asking about it? Pretty sure that's what I said. Like, this is from memory. Yeah. Is there a way to search all of your PMs on Discord? The Lepus guy says he PM'd me stuff on Discord a while ago. I think it, which I do remember, but I don't know how to find it. Because he didn't give his username. Also, I don't know the date. If I could just search for like a word like Charles 2. I don't know if these PMs are even in order. I think they might be. I found something related. But he doesn't specifically say he messaged me on Discord. His direct message. Oh, what is it? Twitter? Okay. Twitter. Take that off screen. Oh, there it is. Um, twitter.com/this. Okay, joined April 2016. 730 tweets. Okay, well, I'm glad that was not Andy. That means that Andy hasn't been back to my blog for a while. So he may have actually left. he could say he's like not familiar enough with CR to know what the error is, but it must be there because of the high level analysis. Or he could say, he did the low level analysis, he couldn't find an error, but the high level analysis indicates there is one, so there's a clash. So his low level or his high level analysis must be wrong. Mostly though, he comes off as like not really very familiar with CR and not that interested. Alright, good enough. I'm moving on. The quoted text. Oh, it's a response to a specific comment. Oh no. What quoted text? I don't know what quoted text he's talking about. Is he talking about the quoted text below? Maybe he means the quoted text later. I'll keep reading and see if it makes sense once I get there. The more we do, the more our willpower and attention gets reduced. Wait, is this supposed to be a statement of like an FI view or the article? His opinion? It's hard to tell if he agrees with this or who he's attributing it to. Like him, me, or article. I think he meant this quote. This is a good example of how like writing stuff makes a difference. Like it's hard to follow what he's talking about. It's more confusing. It's actually affecting communication. A lot of stuff it's not just communication, it's also your own thoughts. Because you think in words. Not only in words, but it's a significant part of thinking. If your words are confused, usually it means your thinking's confused. That should be then, I think. I think there's a missing word here, like considering. So one comment about this stuff is this is why you need to automate things so that they become second nature, intuitive, low focus. So for example, I can touch type while thinking about something else. I don't have to focus in order to touch type. The more skills you can get to the point that they don't need focus and they still work, then the more powerful you become. Okay, I've got one FI post also. Let's see where this one's at. It's some idea about what I wanted to say to this, but it was like 2 days ago or a day ago or something. This is from February 28th. Yeah, it was probably like 2 days ago. Oh wait, no. No, it's not. It's a response to something from February 20th. It's from March 4th. Yeah, I didn't think it was that old. So yeah, like a day or two ago I had an idea to reply, but I didn't get around to it or something. It was like a major topic change though, not a direct reply. Um, yeah, this is roughly what it was that I was gonna say. It's like we're sort of getting lost in his confusions. I think if you just learned some good ideas, like it'd be better. Because like I'm asking a lot of questions that reveal problems, but we don't need to reveal more problems unless we're actually solving them. But to solve them, he needs to learn like stuff about good thinking more. Okay, caught up on all the FIs and the curies. I'm caught up on Discord. I finished the SENS paper. And it's almost 3 a.m. Yeah, I'm gonna end stream. Later, guys.